Hi, my name is Felix Matos Rodríguez, and I am the Chancellor of the City University of New York. People who know me call me Felo, and this is my conversation space on CUNY TV, Café con Felo. Bienvenidos a Café con Felo. Today, I am delighted to sit down with a remarkable leader who brings a wealth of public service and nonprofit experience to our conversation. Grace Bonilla is the president and CEO of the United Way of New York City, one of the city's most influential organizations, driving change in communities all across the 5 boroughs. She assumed the role in 2022, making history as the first Latina to hold that position. Her experience also includes being Senior Vice President for Latin American Affairs at Covenant House, an organization that helps fight homelessness and human trafficking among the youth. She served as the administrator for the city's Human Resources Administration and the CEO of the Committee for Hispanic Children and Families. Most recently, she was selected to serve on Mayor-elect Mamdani's transition team. Ms. Bonilla is a lifelong New Yorker, a native of Queens, and a dedicated public servant, and a dear friend. Bienvenida a Café con Felo. And my first question is always about coffee. Are you a coffee drinker, and how you take it?
I am a huge coffee drinker, half and half.
Half and half?
That's it.
And any preference in coffee from any part of the world?
Well, Ecuadorian coffee is my favorite.
Okay. The second best in the world after Puerto Rican coffee.
There you go. There you go. We're going to battle that out.
But great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Always, I think it's important to give the viewers a little bit of a sense of your trajectory. I mean, I read the many remarkable positions of service that you've had in, public service and in nonprofits. But tell me a little bit about your journey. This is someone who, St. John's as an undergrad, Brooklyn Law for law school. Yes. Nobody's perfect, no CUNY, you still have time.
No CUNY.
But so as you were thinking about law school and what to do, did you envision that law preparation was going to lead you to where you have been?
Not at all. But I will say, I will claim CUNY. My dad went to York College.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for York College, I don't know that we would have had a sense of what it meant to get a college degree. Right. And it was that part. There's a picture that I'm trying to find of me in the York College campus at 5 years old,
okay.
waiting for him in the cafeteria as he finished a class. But no, I don't think that when I was at Brooklyn Law School, I would have ever thought that this was the path my career would take. I thought that I was going to work on prisoners' rights projects. During law school, I worked at Rikers. That's one of the reasons that the Riker issue is so important to me. And I thought that was going to be my career. By the time I graduated, I was offered a job at HRA. I didn't even know what HRA was. I thought it was an HR department at the city. And it started this remarkable path of learning what it means to be vulnerable in New York City and unseen. And that really resonated with me.
And were you in the legal division there, or it was doing policy work?
Yeah, I was hired as an attorney at HRA. I was working on a number of class actions under the Bloomberg administration, doing what's called Article 78, representing the agency. And there's so much to learn. And after spending almost 17 years there, I still feel like I don't know enough. And that ability to just continuously learn, but also know that that was the agency that was the last safety net for people, was really what propelled everything else that I did.
And then you moved to some of your work at Hispanic
Committee for Hispanic Children and Families, yes.
And which I think will be a natural extension of the work at HRA, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was my first nonprofit role post-law school.
Okay.
And it was the first time that I actually got to work in a leadership position in the Latino community, which was such a learning experience and such a privilege. And it was seeing our families, the fear that they felt with big systems, how critical our staff was to bridge those gaps. It really gave me such an appreciation for why the nonprofit and government have to work together.
That's great. And you have this sort of like public service, nonprofit, public service, nonprofit, right? Yeah. It seems to be. Tell me a little bit also about the work with Covenant House, which I know is a remarkable institution here in New York and also across the hemisphere. And but your role there was not New York.
It was not in New York.
It was really Latin America.
First of all, it is one of those jobs that just stay in your heart forever. I was the senior vice president for the work in Latin America in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Mexico. And it was to meet those kids, and some of them were as young as 10 years old in some of our houses who had been trafficked. It was seeing poverty from a whole other aspect. Some of those kids were trafficked by their parents because they were the last ability to bring any income into the family, right? And to remove those kids from their home, give them a safe place, that responsibility was huge. But watching the leaders, like when we're talking about the what we call like sometimes the end user or the client or the person that's benefiting from that service, I always watch the leadership and the service providers. And same thing at HRA, same thing everywhere that I've been. Those are the folks that kind of have like that absorbing all that trauma and really don't have a place to put it because they show up every day, they do the work again. So for me, leadership is so much about being a servant leader to the people that are doing the work.
And it's interesting you mentioned, I mean, you talked a little bit when you were talking about what drove you to law school and sort of trying to make sure that people were not invisible and in human trafficking, right? I think the image that people have is usually about sexual trafficking and about people being snatched and taken, which is part of the reality.
Which does happen, yes.
But there's also this other side in which, I mean, I was going to say families are complicit. I don't like the term complicit because it's a much more complex dynamic, but it's, again, and also something that nobody wants to talk about something that people want to keep incredibly invisible.
That's such a good point, Chancellor, because I think that for my career, whether I was working at Rikers, a community that people don't want to talk about, whether I'm talking about immigrants, another community that people don't want to acknowledge all of the complexities that it means to be an immigrant in this country, or kids that are trafficked, or people that are poor. I think the through line in my career and in my my purpose, it's been to make sure that those people are seen because they create a fabric of our community that is so critical if they're given the right opportunities.
So let's pivot a little bit to something that we share. I mean, for the audience, I'm a proud board member of United Way and actually was a board member when we selected Grace to be our leader in 2022, and it was a great selection. I mentioned in the intro the historic part of your appointment, but I also want to make sure that people know that I think among the many distinguished leaders that United Way has had in New York, and we've had a share, I think there's few that had the level of experience that you had both in similar nonprofits and then in public service, which I think made you the perfect candidate. So
that's very
with
kind.
with that caveat, you come in right after the pandemic, a challenging time here in New York City. What are some of the things that you're most proud of your time at the United Way, or that you want to make sure that people know about United Way?
I mean, I think that three things. It's been 3.5 years. I think the way we brought people together around the shutdown most recently is something that I'm very, very proud of. We consider ourselves the voice for our community, but that is not from a place of arrogance. It comes from a place of a lot of humility. Before we even say a word, we're talking to a good chunk of our 600 nonprofits. So the way our team responds—
600 nonprofits.
600
I just want to make sure that people capture the scope of the work at United Way.
We are probably in every zip code, and people don't even know it. I'm very proud of the way we've pushed for health equity. We have an incredible partnership with the state. We've brought mobile health vans to places that are what I consider health deserts, and we've literally saved people's lives. I get stories over and over again from our team about someone who was about to have a stroke or hypertension, and the fact that that mobile health van was there saved their lives. So I'm very proud of the fact that we're highlighting those things. And thirdly, I'm really proud that I have an all-female team. It's not by design. It's really interviewing the best of what's in New York City, and the commitment that women have to the city, whether it's in the nonprofit or the public space, I get to live it every day. So I'm very proud of that.
Well, and I think it's very, very important in all this, I mean, similar to when we're in public service, that the individuals that benefit from the services, from the work, see themselves reflected in the leadership. Going back to something that you mentioned at the beginning. So, and it's interesting because you mentioned health, which I don't think is something that people associate
That's right.
with United Way
That's right.
in many ways. I also know that you've been very, very United Way, and you personally, on issues of food insecurity, a lot of great work in really creating, to the extent that we can, the most efficient way to allocate resources and get different organizations and groups to work together, which is,
Really tough.
Yes.
Really
yes,
tough.
yes.
Yeah. But to your point, we deliver about 15 million pounds of food every year. And we work with 400 pantries. And every pantry has different needs depending on their neighborhood. We advocate with those pantries. We bring them to Albany with us and DC. And you're absolutely right, we're New Yorkers. Nobody agrees on anything, right? But the fact that we can all come together with a common solution and really fight for that, it puts United Way in a really privileged position where we have a lot of responsibility to show up for New Yorkers all over the city.
And it's an interesting. One other element that I want to mention is because, and again, in this conversation, people might take, and correctly, a sense of the work that United Way, I was going to say we, but I guess I can say we, right? Because I'm on the board.
Yeah.
Do with all these phenomenal organizations that are providing direct services to the different communities. But there's also a policy hat, right? Which I actually think that that you're perfect, and I know that you enjoy and you have a policy wonk side, right?
Yes,
that is. It's very real, right?
Yeah.
And I know that the report on
our true cost of living
Yes.
report. Yes.
I think you should share that with the audience. I don't know that everybody.
I think it's what made United Way such a perfect place for someone like me. My team constantly tells me, don't get too wonky, don't get too, because I can spiral into SNAP is and what Medicaid is and HR1 and what's going to happen. But we knew when I started, we have our true cost of living report that we've been doing for a number of years. And then 3 years ago, we knew that about 50% of New Yorkers could not make ends meet. And that was before inflation, before the asylum seeker crisis, before HR1. So I think for us, 2026 is a period where we have to show up even with more courage, bolder, and make sure that we are telling the stories of the people that are going to fall below the line of poverty, both officially and unofficially. And one of the things that's so critical for New York that always gets us is that the official poverty level at the federal level looks at the country as one big pot. It doesn't look into inflation geographically. It doesn't look at our cost of living, particularly in a city like New York. So we have a number of people, going back to people that are unseen, that are not officially poor, but cannot pay their rent, cannot pay for transportation, are having a hard time paying for childcare. So our true cost of living report shows all that and has been showing that trend for over 20 years. We're going to gear up and advocate for those people again.
And which I think is important to do that advocacy and that's why I wanted to highlight among the many things because I think in a city that has all the resources that we have in New York, an incredible wealth, an incredible venue of art, culture, events, things that cost money, right?
Yes.
And I think sometimes our living in the city and being part of that blinds us to the fact that not everybody can participate in all that riches that the city provides for some New Yorkers and then also for the people who visit us. So,
for me as a lifelong New Yorker who was born in Queens to immigrant parents, I didn't see that New York for a long time. It wasn't until I had a profession that paid me enough, right, to be able to take advantage of these incredible richness that we have here. And that's a shame. It's a shame to me that people who live here, who dedicate their lives to making the city better, don't have access to those things. So yeah, part of my job, and I take it very seriously, is to open up those doors and create access.
Which is something that, we share with the City University of New York,
right.
which is that engine to make sure that many of those individuals actually have a shot to have the degrees, the credentials, the education to them being able to, take advantage of a better job and get to social mobility. You were very proud and emotional when you talked about your dad. I know how fiercely proud you are of your Ecuadorian roots, right? And also how proud that community is about what you have achieved, right, in terms of the many roles that you've had. Tell me a little bit about your family background, a little bit of your family, migrant story here to New York.
Yeah, so my parents came late 60s, early 70s, and I was...
They're both from Ecuador, right?
They're both from Ecuador. They were married there shortly after their wedding. My dad came first, my mom stayed behind, and I am the oldest of four, but part of what also propelled my dad to come here was that I had an older brother who actually passed away at 3 months old, so my dad never met him. And that was part of our story, right, as a family. And the fact that money was the thing that kept him from meeting his son, right? And money was the thing that kept my mom from seeing her husband at a really hard period for them at the very early stage of their marriage. So I think that for all four of us who were born here, we always carried this sense of responsibility that our parents made such a huge sacrifice not being together, not being able to see a child grow up together. And it was all to provide an opportunity for kids that they never even had yet, right? So that has been a through line of my life story. I have 36 first cousins.
Oh my!
Most of them in Ecuador, and they're also part of.
So that's quite a party when you guys get together, right?
When we get together, it's crazy. But they were also a huge part of my life story. It was an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that the first job we had, especially for my brother and me, because we were the oldest, we're like, well, how much are we sending back to the family, right? So that duality of we're going to make it in this city because we love this city and it's a city our parents picked because it's the city of opportunity, but we have a responsibility to make sure that our family back at home is also okay. I think it's the immigrant story that every immigrant has when they come here. So that has also been a real forefront in my mind. My cousins are doing a lot better, right? Some of it could be because there was a family here that made sure that happened. But I also want to make sure that my kids feel like they can do well in this city. And when I see how unaffordable it's becoming, it's a constant reminder that they may have to look for opportunities outside of a city that I love, that gave me so much. And that to me is just tragic. So my current family situation, I have 3 boys that I adore, drive me crazy, and really keep me on my toes.
Hand in hand, yes.
Keep me on my toes. It's funny because it's like, if I want to be humbled, I talk to my children. They're 23, 18, and 16. They are part of the reason why I do so much of what I do. My wonderful husband, thank goodness for him, because if it wasn't for him raising them, I don't know what would have happened to them. But New York is part of who I am because it has given my family opportunities and my extended family opportunities. And I want to protect that as much as I can.
And it's a very challenging, I have 24 and 22. And just recent graduates and navigating the very difficult job market and wanted to be in New York City and you're facing some of the things that you mentioned about affordability.
Absolutely, my 23-year-old, I was married by the time I was 23, obviously was living on my own with my husband, and he's living at home. Just started a job after a year of looking, right? It is a very different New York than the New York I grew up in.
That is someone also that has access to networks that you didn't have.
Correct.
Because your parents were in a very different, which is one of the things, for example, at CUNY that I think a lot about the work that we can do in internships and bringing additional social capital to the students that we serve that have all the talent, all the desire, all the aspirations. What they don't have is the network.
That's right.
And even the ones that networks are having challenges.
1,000%. 1,000%. But I do think that is the beauty of a place like CUNY, right? My family would not have had the opportunities they had without CUNY, right? And bridging that gap so we can keep our talent here is so meaningful and so critical.
That's right. So I know that the producers are going to tell me, how come you didn't ask her about serving in the mayor's elect
we don't want to get you in trouble.
But we're going to take a break.
Okay.
We're going to come back and we're going to take questions from 2 students from Baruch, from their School of Public Affairs. So
Wonderful.
And maybe in their questions we can tie in some of the work that you've been doing in the transition committee, and maybe you can give a sneak preview of what might be coming to the city. So please stay tuned. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Café con Felo. I'm here today with Grace Bonilla, the President and CEO of the United Way of New York City. Let's take some questions from students at Baruch College Mark School of Public and International Affairs. I believe the first question is coming from Krista.
The United Way partners with hundreds of local groups. How do you decide where support is needed most?
Well, thank you, Chris. That's a great question. A lot of it depends on our data. So for example, I talked a little bit about our health work. We are looking at where are chronic health conditions most prevalent in the city, where is the life expectancy lower than intended, considering the average across the city, and that's where we go. A lot of it also depends on our government partners. So if you have a government contract that says we need you to work in Brownsville, that's where we're going to work. Most of it is data-driven. We try to be in as many places as possible, and there's still places where we wish that we can make a breakthrough. So
it's well, I mean, I think people still believe in the sort of like old United Way model, and there's still a lot of donations and philanthropic gifts and things where we have discretion, where we provide support based on the data.
Very different model.
But when you have contracts, some of those decisions are made for the organization, right?
That's right. But to your point, the beauty about United Way and one of our contracts that we have with the city to work with people that are systems involved is that we get to be at the table sometimes to design these. Not a lot of nonprofits get that opportunity. Sometimes you're applying and you're told exactly what to do. And we have some of those contracts, but we take our opportunity to like muscle in there and try to design with government.
And I think that's a great segue. I'm going to take a second before the second question. Having a seat at the table.
That's right.
You have a seat at the table now in the transition committee.
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to do that and what's exciting about that role?
So first of all, I don't know that you ever say no to a mayor.
That's a good life work strategy for folks listening out there.
That's right. But I also believed in what he was talking about, right? I think that if you look at my career, affordability has been a through line, right?
Yes.
And folks that are falling below that line. And he wants to do something about it and talked about it throughout his campaign. It's also a really difficult thing to transition one mayor out and another mayor in. I've done it between Bloomberg and de Blasio. I was on the transition team for Mayor Adams. So I know how hard it is to really pick the right team, and sometimes it all boils down to who's sitting at the table with you. So it's a privilege for me to be able to pick out those deputy mayors that are going to really work on his agenda and are going to be partners to us in the sector to make sure that we're delivering on the agenda. So I did it because I believe in New York.
Yep.
I believe that the people have chosen, and this mayor has to succeed. Yep. And if I can have even a little bit to do with that, I'm going to take my shot. So,
well, and then also be part of the conversation and be a voice among many. And we're very proud that we have Dean Fullahan, who, after being first deputy mayor, came to CUNY to work with us at the institute, and now is back, sort of being the number one to the mayor in the transition. So we're very proud of that. And for me, picking the deputy mayors is very important. But from where I sit, I also need a great partner in the New York City Schools Chancellor.
Of course.
So I'm putting just a little plug there, right? Because for us at CUNY, that is our lifeline. That partnership is really key.
And I agree with you. That through line between what happens in public schools and what happens in CUNY is the future of New York City. So we're working on that, I promise.
That's great. So I think we have Noon waiting for a second question.
For students entering public service or nonprofit sector, what skill do you think is essential today?
Interesting.
That's a great question. The ability to listen and not make assumptions, I think, is huge, both in public sector and the nonprofit. We talk about this all the time with the leadership at United Way. We cannot go into communities and make any assumptions, even if we lived in those communities 20 years ago, even if our life story is similar to theirs, because everything changes so quickly in this city. So one is that, listening. And the second, I think, is patience. And the third, a very good mentor of mine once said, figure out what people need and be the first to provide it, right? So just raising your hand first takes you a long way.
And builds trust.
Yes.
And it's very, very important. And as someone who's seen you in action, I can give testimony that that you live to the examples that you're providing folks of really listening, of really respecting the agency of the people we serve, which then also allows you, when you do speak, to speak with a different kind of authority. And to be much more effective in what you do. So, and then also build trust and be able to deliver for the community.
It's a two-way street, right? The community provides so much good information. They are the experts in their lives, and many of us just get to tell their story, right? So we have to do that respectfully.
Which is a privilege.
Yes,
that we get to do that, and it gives meaning to our lives and purpose, but it's really a privilege.
It really is.
And it's a privilege for us to have had you here in the show and to have you, in our city serving everybody. But we have run out of time. I'm going to have to invite you to talk some more. We could have done so many other comments, but I want to thank you for your time today, for your great public service and all that you do, and you will continue to do for many, many years. And to those of you who are watching, thank you for joining us with Café con Felo. Please note that they gave me a new time slot. I'm excited. Beginning in 2026, we will air now Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m., competing against the telenovelas in some of the channels, but we're going to do so well. So please tune in for conversations that celebrate and leaders that make a difference here at Café con Felo. Muchísimas gracias.